The Outer Worlds 2 lets you craft some of the wildest and most unique builds we've seen yet in an RPG. Whether you're a science specialist, a stealth assassin, or a long-range sniper, there's a playstyle and build exactly for you. In this best builds guide for the Outer Worlds 2, we're going to dive into my 7 favorite builds that I've tried over my 100 plus hours now in the game, so far including the best skills, perks, weapons, armor, and more to help you get off to the best start possible in this massive game. Timestamps will be provided down below if you want to skip to a build or rewatch a section, and don't forget we have written builds over on our website, that's hacktheminotaur.com, for all the builds in this video and more. A link for those will be down below. But let's start things off with something unique, and that is the science build. The science build in the Outer Worlds 2 takes over right where the Outer Worlds 1 left off, with its unique set of science weaponry and gadgets, except there's more to choose from here. To get started, consider investing in traits like Innovative, which boosts your crafting capabilities, allowing you to craft more items with fewer resources. This is actually going to be quite helpful during the course of your playthrough because the science weapons and other unique weapons you can pick up for a scientist theme are quite ammo hungry, as we'll see in a moment, with weapons like the Shrink Ray. For a second trait, you could also consider Brilliant, letting you specialize in a third skill, though if you go this route, you will need to pick up a negative trait, of which I recommend Abrasive, as it has the least amount of impact on combat. Now for skills here, I recommend specializing in science, of course, but also guns, as there are many guns in the game which are not considered science necessarily, but still have quite a bit of science flavor to them. Hacking is also worth investing into for a science playthrough, as it unlocks quite a few perks having to do with robots, including making them attack other enemies or shutting them down completely. For starting weapons, you'll want to focus on pistols early on, such as the plasma pistol and biomass pistol. While not technically science weapons, they do stack status effects like burn and corrosion more frequently thanks to your science skill investment, and can easily shred through enemy armor and defenses, making them great starter weapons. Once you've progressed enough through the story though, you'll be able to grab the classic Shrink Ray science weapon, which makes a return from the original game, but with a few differences. Here, the main difference is it now shrinks enemies permanently so that you can step on them, killing them instantly. This is a pretty fun mechanic and helps you to really establish the science build as a wacky and fun theme. I have to say though that one of my favorite weapons is the corrosion shotgun called the Goomerang. This thing literally melts enemies, even leaders and bosses, so definitely worth picking up. Now in terms of armor, the Outer Worlds 2 does introduce the concept of science armors with the Gary armor set. I'm not sure how to describe this other than Gary is like a sentient thing that you actually wear, and it talks to you, giving you all kinds of quirky one-liners that pop up during your playthrough. It participates in combat too though by reaching out to whack nearby enemies, so it's quite good when paired with this medium range setup focusing on pistols and shotguns. Finally, in terms of perks, I recommend Commando early on, as you'll want more weapon options to switch between. Manual Reset is another good option early on for dealing with those auto mechanicals. If you lean into corrosion weapons like I did for my playthrough, definitely grab Caustic Researcher. And then one of the best defensive perks I recommend in the game also has a nice science theme to it, and that's called Contingency Screen. This uses your shield gadget automatically when you dip below 25% health, and it uses 0 gadget energy, so you can even use other gadgets at the same time, which is pretty amazing. More details on the science build are down below, linked in the description if you want to check out this one. Moving things right along, let's talk about the Heavy Gunner Machine Gun build. This one is your classic battlefield tank, sporting heavy armor and weapons, including machine guns and explosives, where your goal is to deal as much destruction as possible, while also soaking up damage and distracting enemies for your team. For the best trait here, you'll want the Resilient trait, as this automatically revives you once per combat round, so that even when you do go down, you'll come right back. In terms of skills, guns is your go-to starting skill, and throughout the game, scaling your gun damage by 10% per point invested, and giving you access to some of the most devastating perks in the entire game. Engineering is another skill you should focus on here, as each point invested into engineering increases your damage resistance, and you can stack a ton of armor with some great engineering-focused defensive perks. For weapons, you'll have a ridiculous amount of options for this one, as the Outer Worlds 2 really pushes the envelope in terms of weapon selection and destruction. For example, before finishing the first planet, you should be able to get your hands on the Chain Spark Cannon, which is a machine gun that uses shock rounds to chain lightning between your enemies. This thing is absolutely devastating, especially versus robots who are weak to that shock damage. Other options include the explosive machine gun called Agatha, which you can get on Free Market Station, which is also amazing. For longer range combat, consider picking up the rocket launcher, which is harder to get ammo for, but when you need it, it's absolutely amazing. For armor, you can get Car's Cuirass early on. This provides a ton of defensive potential. You could also try the Gothic armor set, which is also fairly easy to get, looks cool, and also helps you stack your max health. And then there's the bomb suit, which gives you some interesting options if you lean into using explosive weapons like Agatha, as the helmet here gives you a temporary health boost for dealing explosive damage, making you essentially invincible in combat. And finally, for perks, lean into more defensive options at the start, such as Bullet Shield, which gives you more damage resistance and max health, and the Shrug It Off perk for temporary health at the start of combat, plus the Makeshift Armor perk, which increases your armor value anytime you craft, which you'll be doing quite often on this build to craft your own ammo. For offensive perks, check out the Hail of Lead option, which increases your damage the more you fire your weapons, and the Tinkerer perk, which increases the damage for modded weapons based on your engineering skill. All told, this is by far one of the most fun builds I've played in the Outer Worlds 2, though you will need a ton of ammo, so be prepared to craft a lot or spend a lot of bits. So a similar but faster and more mobility focused option is going to be the rifle or commando style build for the Outer Worlds 2. This is your classic run and gun or FPS style build. If you're looking for something more dynamic that lets you jump into combat and then behind cover with more tactical elements, then this is for you. Now for starting traits here, I recommend Lucky for the increased critical chance in combat, plus some really interesting story options, which I won't spoil here. But you could also go with Resilient if you don't want to worry about dying as much, and this can be really helpful on harder difficulties as well. For skills, guns again will be your best bet to invest into, as well as the Observation skill, which increases weak point damage. Weak point damage in the Outer Worlds 2 is essentially headshots versus human NPCs, though it can vary a lot for robot and creature type enemies, so make sure to experiment with that as well, but it does give you a lot of extra damage. For weapons on this one, you can unlock the Rookie's Reward at the start of the game. This one is interesting because it levels up with you over time, gradually increasing in damage and speed. This is an okay starting weapon, but there are so many better options here, including my favorite option called the Bullet Blender. This unique rifle lets you use any ammo you have in your inventory, and it requires no reloading, meaning as long as you have ammo, you are basically unstoppable. Now for armor here, I recommend anything in the medium or light range, as these armor types boost your combat sprint speed, while the heavy armor type does not. The Prescience armor is a good option for this build, combined with helmets like the Monocular Target Finder for increased weak spot damage. Finally, for perks, consider using Trophy Hunter early on for the increased crit chance, and even more versus bosses, and for defense, the Ninja perk, which increases your evasion while moving. As always, all the details for this one, including more weapons, armor, and perks, are listed in the written guide linked down below. Coming in next is our melee build, which is also incredibly strong in the Outer Worlds 2, though it will have less options overall for weapon choices compared to gun-based builds that we mentioned previously, so just keep that in mind. For traits though, on this one, you definitely want to grab the Brawny trait because it lets you stun enemies by sliding or running into them. Crowd control is a huge benefit for a melee build here, so that's just something to keep in mind, and we'll take advantage of this with perks later on as well. Now for skills, obviously focus on melee first for the increased damage and block. Engineering though is a good skill to pick up as well if you really want to increase your armor and defensive potential. And believe it or not, speech is also great for this build too, as you can invest into even more unique offensive perks like Space Ranger or Intimidator. For starting weapons, anything is fine, though I do recommend you focus on the quote heavy melee, or basically two-handed melee weapons for this one rather than the light melee or one-handed weapons, because these do have increased damage, especially for your strong attacks. On the first planet, you can pick up the unique Thunderstruck heavy melee, which sends forward a shockwave on your strong attack, which is pretty awesome. But you can also get an even crazier melee weapon on the second planet called Wham Bam, which turns your hammer into a shotgun somehow. So yeah, this thing is pretty insane. For armor, any heavy armor will do, such as Car's Cuirass, or medium if you want to sacrifice for less protection but for greater mobility. And try to pick up the Berserker, a unique helmet which you can get from one of the advanced lockboxes on your ship. This one gives you 15% base health and a 20% damage boost every time you take melee damage, which is pretty insane for this one. Finally, for perks here, make sure to start with the heavy-handed perk. This is by far the most important early melee perk you can get, as it knocks down enemies with your power attack, letting you quickly finish them off while they struggle to get up. The Echoing Blows perk is nice too, as this gives you a small bit of extra AoE damage to your melee attacks, and the Tit for Tat perk is awesome because it heals you for 25% of the damage caused by your melee weapons, greatly helping your survivability. Again, check out the links below if you'd like to see more about the melee build in the Outer Worlds too. It is definitely a blast to play. But that brings us to my top 3 favorite builds now for the game, starting with the Sniper build. Obsidian really did a great job with the Sniper playstyle for this game. You do have multiple options when it comes to unique sniper rifles, and you can choose to go full stealth mode if you prefer, or just straight up damage, which is what I tended to do. Along with the game's tactical time dilation gadget to line up those headshots, this build is extremely satisfying and powerful. Now in terms of traits, again, I'd recommend Lucky just for a little bit of extra critical chance here, though Brilliant is another great option if you want some more early skill points. Now in terms of skills, again, Guns is the obvious choice for this one with the increased range damage, as well as the Observation skill, which we saw earlier, which greatly scales up your weak spot damage. You definitely want that as well. For starting weapons, you actually won't have a lot of options early on, unfortunately. The Sniper is definitely one of those builds that gains power slowly, and a lot more towards the mid and end game as more options start to open up for you. But until then, you can use pistols or a marksman rifle, as there are several options for those. But later on, you'll want to grab a silenced sniper rifle if your goal is a stealth sniper playthrough, or by progressing the main story, you'll be able to access the amazing Simplifier unique sniper rifle, which actually has 2 different scope options built in. You can toggle for long and even longer range, plus no fall off point for damage, thanks to the unique Pinpoint Assassin mod on this one. Definitely extremely overpowered. And for armor on this, you can make use of light to medium armor on the Sniper build. It's not hugely as important, as you should be far enough away, and make use of cover on this build to mitigate some of that incoming damage. The Boa skin, for example, can be a nice armor that gives you a quick burst of temporary health when you drop down too low, or the Prescience armor from the Order of the Ascendant, which triggers an extra tactical time dilation at 0 cost. And for extra style points, you can pick up the Lonesome Ranger hat to increase your magazine size and give you up to 100% extra bonus damage. Finally, in terms of perks on this one, Sharpshooter gives you one of the best possible bonuses with 30% range damage to far enemies and an extra 100% sneak attack damage, though that does require a silenced rifle to not be detected after the first shot. Trick Shot can also be used here to bounce weak spot kill damage to nearby enemies, and Deep Drums can even give you 50% more ammo before you need to reload your rifle, which is great. But all in all, the Sniper build is incredibly powerful if you're okay with waiting a bit longer to get strong and more specialized sniper rifle weapons, as those do take a bit longer to get a hold of. But next up we have the Stealth Assassin build, which is another build that can take some time to develop. Once you get rolling, it's incredibly fun and powerful. For traits here, definitely pick up Nimble, as this increases your crouched, aka stealth movement speed, which is going to be very important for this one. For skills, it depends on your preferred playstyle and method of combat here, whether that's guns or melee. To me, melee was a lot more fun in the long run, though it can be more challenging to start with due to the lack of good melee weapons in the early game. But regardless, you'll also want Sneak for another specialized skill on this build. And for starting weapons, any melee weapon is fine, and you can even use a silenced pistol for a more medium range assassination style if you want to go with that approach. But melee was definitely my preferred way to go on this one. Keep in mind that light melee weapons such as a knife do have a higher stealth damage multiplier, which stacks up decently with the right perks, while heavy melee weapons will have a lower stealth bonus. But overall, for weapons, the best choice by far is the unique dagger called Murder's Best Friend. This is obtained through one of the game's advanced lockboxes as well, so you'll need to be saving up those keys, but it's well worth it, as this one gives you bonus damage and crouch speed after every stealth kill. For armor on this one, there is a stupidly overpowered option I recommend, that being the Patient Step, unique light armor. This one makes it so that tactical time dilation no longer drains energy while moving, so essentially you can move incredibly far distances while under the time dilation effect before enemies can even react or detect you, letting you get behind them easily to execute a perfect stealth attack. You can then retreat away, grab some cover, and avoid detection. This is incredibly fun and addictive, so highly recommend you get this armor, and you can get it fairly early on from the second planet. The unique Menacing Mask Helmet, another lockbox item, makes your melee attacks deal 10% of your sneak attack bonus in combat, which is another great item to pick up. And finally, for perks on this one, you have a lot of good options here, including the Assassination perk, which boosts your speed after a stealth kill for 5 seconds, Vital Striker for more sneak attack damage, and Heavy Handed, which is actually incredibly important on this build too, especially when enemies are too strong or high level for you to instantly stealth kill them. Having access to this perk will let you knock them down with a strong attack, taking away a huge chunk of their health. Basically should get them low enough health where then you can execute that stealth and assassination, or do just a couple light attacks to finish them off. But yeah, another great build here that's extremely fun and addicting to play when you have everything set up the right way. But that leads us to my number one favorite build for the Outer Worlds 2, the pistol-wielding Space Gunslinger build. What's great about this one and why it's my favorite is that this build can carry you literally from the very start of the game all the way until the end, and it also has some of the strongest unique weapons and armor that you can also get really early, making it super simple. It also has some of the strongest perks, as we will see as well. For traits, Lucky is the way to go with its increased critical hit chance, and in terms of skills, it's also extremely easy here. Focus on guns first as your main skill with observation for that increased weak spot bonus damage. For a third skill, you can focus on lockpicking, which will give you more loot and progression options through the game, plus more evasion, or the speech skill, which can give you further dialogue options and further damage with perks like Space Ranger. For early weapons, as I said, you have some of the best weapons in the game right at the start, including the unique Rattler pistol, essentially a shotgun in the form of a revolver. This one deals a ton of damage right away, and you can even mod this one with a plasma barrel if you want even more damage for a science-y gunslinger style of hybrid. But the heavy revolvers you start to find around the second planet are also extremely good when paired with high observation for bonus weak spot damage. You can basically one-shot a lot of basic enemies with these quite easily. For armor on this one, you can pick up the police officer's outfit and hat in the first city, Fairfield, for that gunslinger vibe, and eventually upgrade to the unique patient step light armor, which we already mentioned. This is ideal if you like staying in tactical time dilation, or you could go with the prescience armor, which has more of a space gunslinger vibe going. With hats too, you'll have plenty of options here, like the monocular target finder for increased weak spot damage. There are even better helmets with more weak spot damage than this. Or you could go with something like the Plasmamancer helmet for even more magazine size. This one, combined with flaws like overprepared and perks like deep drums, can easily boost your 6-shot revolver to 20 plus rounds per reload. I don't really know how this works, but it just works. And make sure to hip fire too, by the way, as it's incredibly fast compared to aim shots. But you also have some of the best starting perks in the game for this one, with options like Crabble Rancher for more damage, Eden Windage for greater weapon range and weak spot damage, Through the Keyhole for greater range, plus one of the strongest perks of all in Lucky Shot. This one gives you 100% bonus crit damage and makes your enemies explode when killing them, which is absolutely insane. I did do a full video breakdown for this one, by the way, in my previous YouTube video, so make sure to check out that video next if you're interested, or check out any of the builds I mentioned on our website, that's hacktheminotaur.com. Links for all those are down below as well. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you around in the next video.